Okay, if there's a break in the video, sorry about that, guys. We had a bit of technical issues, so thank you for staying on and listening if you're listening later. But yeah, it's kind of interesting how many similarities they are, not just because of the plot and themes, but because this is kind of Nausicaa is kind of technically Miyazaki's first movie as an auteur, because you could kind of say Cagliostro was like a director for hire job a little bit more so because he didn't have as much creative freedom as he had with Nausicaa, because you probably know this, but he had to make Nausicaa a manga before they would let him turn it into a movie because they said it would cost too much money to make. So after it was a successful manga, then they said, okay, you can now adapt it into a movie. And then the movie went on to be a huge hit in Japan, and basically he was able to fund and start Studio Ghibli.
Yeah, it's a it's an amazing movie too. So yeah, I was watching it last night and I kept thinking the whole time going, those giant robots were a direct influence on Evangelion. Like absolutely. And if you
Oh,
know anything about Final Fantasy, chocobos were totally directly borrowed from the birds in this movie too. So this had a lot of cultural influence.
I think it even translates over to the Western audiences with Rey in the newer Star Wars movies. Like her introduction in The Force Awakens is very Nausicaa influenced.
Yeah,
You know,
I would think so. Yeah.
and I feel like this is one of his more underrated movies. I don't feel like it gets talked enough as how good it is, especially since this is only his second movie.
Yeah, it's 39 years ago was when it was released, and I think it never got the full, it's not talked about near as much, and it is one of his earlier movies, but he is on point with it. Like this is not a like, oh, you can tell this is a new direct. No, no, no. He's a very experienced guy at this point. He knows what he's doing, and he makes just this absolutely insane environmental sci-fi movie.
Absolutely. And I think because, he's in his 40s when this is being made. So he'd been working in animation and TV for well over a decade at this point. So, and he already had a feature film under his belt. So he knew what he was doing, and he's a very, organized and planned. And of course, he had already mapped out this whole story in manga form. So he had it. And I think if there's one thing, there's a difference between this film and Mononoke is the genre. So yeah, Nausicaa is very much a post-apocalyptic sci-fi movie, whereas Mononoke is more of a fantasy movie set in a more historical period of Japan.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Which is one of his fewer a lot of his later movies are more set in Japan. It's interesting his earlier films seem to be more European based for the most part, except for Totoro, and then it seems like after Mononoke, I guess with the exception of Howl's Moving Castle, everything is pretty much set in Japan.
yeah, of his films. I mean, Ghibli did some stuff like Tales of Earthsea, but for his films, yeah, they're very much set in Japan.
But I mean, we have the female protagonist that's here in both films. I guess in Mononoke it's kind of shared though between her
Mm-hmm.
and the prince from the other village.
Yeah, you've got San as Princess Mononoke, and Ashitaka, of course, is it's probably more Ashitaka's show than San's show, but San, of course, being the titular character,
Mm-hmm.
is very much, she's a remarkable character. So yeah.
Absolutely. And there's definitely more of the romance chemistry in Mononoke than there is in Nausicaa. It's a little bit in Nausicaa, but the male character doesn't get introduced to much later in the story, and it's kind of just here or there.
Yeah, yeah. It's not anywhere near as important. I mean, the Nausicaa as a protagonist is just, yeah, is top notch.
But I mean, not only do we have the environmental messages of like man destroying the earth or is destroying the earth and it affecting the animals and their mental stability. Like both the creatures in these stories have rage problems caused by men and their machinery.
Mm-hmm. They're both very, yeah, and they both have large scenes of disasters when nature goes amok, runs amok, with very similar results. Heck, there's even a moment where it's like, get to the lake. And they're both scenes where they're like, get to the lake. So
yeah, and you have these warring factions of villages and tribes at war with each other as well. Like, and
yeah,
people, and like the character, lady, is it Yuboshi?
Iboshi, yeah, she's extremely similar to
The
the
princess that Uma Thurman voices in Nausicaa.
mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is. There are so many similarities watching them, back to back. I was like, wow, this is it very much borrowing these things, yet at the same time, two remarkably different stories.
Mm-hmm.
Nausicaa definitely influenced him, but it's two radically different stories.
Yeah, I think you could even say Nausicaa is his test run to see like how much he could put into one movie. And Mononoke is him like unrelentless on his frustrations with mankind and the world.
Yeah, it's a dark movie. It's a dark movie. It's a beautiful movie. The soundtrack, I was telling Cody earlier, I was crying because it's one of those, how music can make you cry. Well, that soundtrack will do it. It's a tearjerker soundtrack, and it is extremely powerful and exceptionally orchestral. It really is remarkable.
Yeah, I actually got to see Mononoke finally on the big screen about 5 years ago for my birthday on Ghibli Fest, and it was great.
Yeah, if there's one of his films that you should see in there is it's probably Mononoke. It's it's a I've got to stop my cat from touching the screen. She's going to disconnect us. I'm sorry. I've got a cat. She is still technically a kitten. She isn't even 1 year old yet. She's very much interested in the screen, and it's a touchscreen laptop. So let's hopefully not get disconnected again.
She wants us to do a compare and contrast of She's Gotta Have It the movie and She's Gotta Have It the TV show.
Yeah. It's like right now my screen is literally in 4 screens, and I'm afraid to touch it because I don't know what's going to happen.
Oh no. She's the chaos demon from the forest.
Yeah, she is definitely the chaos demon from the forest. She is a mighty warrior.
And
yeah.
And both protagonists have this like second nature, like they have this sixth sense with nature and the animals. Of course, the Mononoke-san has been raised by the wolves, so she identifies more as a wolf than a human. But Nausicaa has this special ability to like connect with animals on an emotional and mental level.
Yeah. Yeah, and they are both movies, the characters are the only ones who get it.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone else is like, we can't have this. We have to destroy nature. And then they're like, no. That's a really bad idea.
I think Ashikoto is kind of trying to play the middleman in Mononoke, though. Like he definitely doesn't want to disrupt the flow of nature in the forest and has respect for it, but at the same time, he's like, I don't want to start a war with these people.
Yeah, he's in a tough spot in that movie. It's like you
Mm-hmm.
don't feel. It's like you're like, oh, I feel so sorry for you because you're just in the worst possible spot. And oh, by the way, you're cursed and dying. So it's like, and it's that leads to some interesting things. While in Nausicaa, it's a lot more family friendly, and she does not have that problem. She instead has the problem of trying to prevent nuclear Armageddon 2.0. And
Yep.
it's a very it's a very interesting it's a very interesting thing.
We also get a giant creature. Of course, in Mononoke, it's the spirit god, the spirit of the forest. But in Nausicaa, it's some sort of weapon of mass destruction.
Yeah, it's a, and they both physically have similar gangly arms and gangly legs and walk like this, just very thing. And it really is it really is very similar.
Yeah, I love both of these movies. I'm just trying to think of some other instances where they're similar. I think we've hit a lot of definitely, the environmental message and this message of nature, mankind. There's also this whole old world, new world at odds with each other. And that's actually, these themes are in a lot of Miyazaki movies. Like
they are, they're very much, change is a very big part of Miyazaki's movies. Everyone I've seen, I think that there's growth. Growth would be a better way of putting it.
Mm-hmm. And I do think it is the effects of being raised in a post World War II Japan as a child and seeing the effects of what the atom bomb not just did to their environment, but to their society and their economy.
Yeah. Yeah, like in Nausicaa, it's set 1,000 years after, just 7 days of war that wiped out almost all humanity and left a giant environmental scar upon the world. And that's a little different from Mononoke, where it's the humans who are doing all the damage.
Mm-hmm.
And so in Nausicaa, you're seeing people trying to prevent the sins of the past, while in Mononoke, you're seeing the sins being committed.
Yeah, and I wonder, I'm not 100% when Mononoke takes place, but I feel like it's of that timeline when Japan was trying to modernize its army and kind of get rid of the samurai as their.
It was prior to that. If it was prior to
okay.
that, it was. It wasn't I think that was the Meiji Restoration when that was going on, and I'm sure there's some person who knows way better than us who's probably going to be like, no, it was this.
Mm-hmm.
This is yeah. I mean, the samurai lord they mention in the movie is a real person. I know that. But at least I think they're a real person. It looked like that on Wikipedia. But yeah.
Yeah. I know both movies have like this old sage medicine woman type of character.
Mm-hmm. And both of them deal with the grayness of reality. That nothing is, there's not black and white. It's very complicated. Everyone's got different things. Mononoke much more so than Nausicaa.
Yeah,
but at the same time,
go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah, at the same time, there is still the incredible evil of greed involved, and vengeance and hate and wanting to get revenge in both cases.
Yeah, because I mean, like, San is not completely like the hero because she's so bloodthirsty to kill Lady Eboshi, who's not even really full on the bad guy in this story.
Yeah, I mean, she's bad. There's no question.
Yeah, she does bad things.
She's not a good person, but everything she's doing, she does because she believes it's right, and she wants to take care of her people, and she doesn't care how much destruction she does to get it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she does not understand what she's doing. She is all about progress and making things, advancing everything at the cost of everything else. You know, there's no attempt to live in harmony with things. There's no future thought of, well, what in the world happens if I tear down a forest? You know, there's no thought of any of this. It's just like, I got to get the iron, you know.
Well, and there's that moment when we finally get, to the end and they restore the forest god's head, and that one guy that Ashitako saved earlier in the film, he's like, "Oh, I didn't know the flowers came from the spirit god." It's just like,
and you just like face palming. Like, how do you not know this? It's kind of obvious, you know. Yeah, but it just shows the incredible ignorance of man.
Right.
Both movies show that, the ignorance of humanity, that we don't ever think the big picture. There's never that emotional intelligence in that, when it comes to progress, or it comes to, like in Nausicaa, it's like, we just had to prevent all this from happening again because these guys have this thing, we're in trouble. So we got to use it first. And then you've got Nausicaa going, no, this is a bad idea. And it's just like, it's really, but in all cases, it's just, guys, everybody calm down.
Yeah, because there's that whole scene in Nausicaa where we finally meet the male characters. Is it his dad, or are they related? It's the general or whatever he is that Mark Hamill voices. I think
it's actually the mayor of the town.
Yeah, so and he's like, we can't let them have this weapon.
And of course you can tell it's Mark Hamill because it's Mark Hamill just modifying, his voice just slightly. And then Shia LaBeouf's character, and it's so funny because you're like, I remember I was watching it the other night and I was like, wait a minute, is that Shia LaBeouf? That can't be Shia LaBeouf. And then you realize this was done 25 years ago, and Shia LaBeouf has aged up a considerable amount. And
you can always
young Shia LaBeouf sounded like.
You can always tell when these Disney dubs were done based on whoever the young characters are being voiced by, because Nausicaa is voiced by Alison Lohman, I believe is her name, which she had just done Big Fish and Matchstick Man and a movie with Michelle Pfeiffer. So
I think her last movie was Drag Me to Hell before she retired from acting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And same thing with every other one. Well, probably even Claire Danes voicing San is also a thing there for Mononoke as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's usually how you can spot. And I guess they were doing the Nausicaa and Castle in the Sky dubs around the same time because Mark Hamill just went over to Castle in the Sky and his voices the villain in that film.
Yeah, and that's a great movie too. So yeah, that's it's like, has he ever done a bad movie? I don't think he's ever done a bad movie. So
no, I don't even think he's done a mediocre film. Honestly,
I don't think he has. No, it's like
honestly, to me, they're at least all, maybe the lowest rating for me is like a 3.5-star film.
Yeah, which is really good. So yeah.
I mean, any other filmmaker, live action or animated, would kill to have 11 almost great movies in their resume.
Yeah, it's definitely, yeah, and Miyazaki has a very special genius to him, that puts him apart from a lot of other directors. I mean, I put him up there with Scorsese, Spielberg, Tarantino, John Ford, Akira Kurosawa, Takashi Miike. I put him up there with like the just all the big boys.
Yeah, I think he's one of the greats. And is it the Chris Sarandon character? I think they call him Kurokawa, but I believe when I looked up the like character listing, I think they had him listed as Kurosawa.
I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know. I know John DiMaggio plays it up real hard in Mononoke, and I had forgotten John DiMaggio was in the movie. And I mean, at the time, he was voicing Bender.
Who does he voice?
He
Because
voices Lady Eboshi's second,
oh, that makes
and then
sense.
some
That
additional
totally.
and then some additional voices as well.
I mean, it's a little harder sometimes to catch it because he's an actual voice actor, so he's not always doing the same voice for it's
Yeah.
based on the character he's playing sometimes. But that makes sense. That's him there in that role.
Yeah, that's definitely. And then Jada Pinkett Smith's in there.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
As the wife of that one guy.
yeah, there's a lot of great scenes, and I think that you see humanity a lot more in this movie. You see everything from good to bad
What?
in Princess Mononoke, while it's a lot more simple in Nausicaa. Nausicaa is what you show your kid before they get a little older and they can stand and they can. Then you're like, okay, I can deal with it. It's animated, so we'll allow the 13-year-old to watch the decapitation scene, of which there are several.
Yeah, I knew it this time coming in, but last time when I did all of the films back to back and I got to Mononoke, I was like, I totally forgot that this movie was so violent.
Yeah, it's like wow, that's what a demon curse does. Okay. Like, you don't
Because
expect an arrow to be able to decapitate somebody, but
yeah, it is like I said, I think this is Miyazaki at his most relentless and like mad at the world. He's like putting all his frustrations out on screen.
yeah, he I think he was really pin up and just he was really trying to hammer home a message. And
That we sadly got to keep hammering on. People, you're not
I know, you
listening.
got to keep hammering it on. It's like nobody listens.
Well, him and James Cameron are trying. They're trying.
Yeah, they're trying. They're trying. Yeah, it's yeah.
But yeah, these are, I think Nausicaa would be, if you're like trying to show after you've shown probably Totoro, Kiki's, Ponyo, Spirited Away, even Howl's Moving Castle, and then Nausicaa and Castle, then you'd be like, oh, if they're old enough, okay, you're ready for Mononoke.
When you get to Mononoke, it's like, though even Spirited Away, even then, is like that's like watching an old school Disney movie. It's like where we're just like, I'm going to be unrelenting on all the dark subjects that they won't touch nowadays.
But granted, these kids need to be hooked though and fairly older before you show them Porco Rosso or The Wind Rises, just because those movie subject matters are not for kids.
No, but even then, they're not like Princess Mononoke. Mononoke is definitely. I was going like, if this was released today, this would get an R rating.
Oh, totally. It would totally get an R rating. I think the only reason it got away with PG-13 is because, one, it was animated. Two, they're like, how many people are going to actually watch this movie in the theaters? And it's a Miramax movie. I mean,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
because I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I watched it the first time on video and rented it at Blockbuster because it didn't come anywhere near where I was living.
Yeah. That's one of the benefits of living in a big city is you're able to see, you're able to see movies like that. But even now, it's better than it is now. Now they get those movies and they play them in theaters. But, in 99, that just wasn't the case. So,
Yeah, I just saw, what was that anime? It's the same guy that did Your Name. Is it Suzumi? Is that the name of it?
I don't know because I've never actually watched. Wait, did he do?
He did Weathering with You as well, which I think is.
Yeah. Did he do
I think
Summer Wars?
he might have. I know he's done about 4 movies now. I think 4 or 5
Yeah.
movies. Anyways, his newest movie, I saw it in a mall in Lufkin, Texas. So that shows you how much anime has increased since '99.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Toonami definitely helped with that.
Absolutely. I
I
mean,
mean, go ahead.
Toonami was huge. I think even dating it back to Ghost in the Shell and Akira were huge crossover animes.
I mean, it's like if you're an elder millennial like we are, zillennials, you remember watching the Sci-Fi Channel on Saturday morning where they're showing ludicrously inappropriate anime for a Saturday morning TV show, and your parents like, it's animated, and like they're not noticing the fact that somebody is getting their arm ripped off because it's a cyborg an ape-man after, not a human. So that green blood spray is not blood; it's cybernetic fluid, and you're like, yeah, no, somebody recolored that.
Well, that's also our society kind of scoffing at violence, not so much as they scoff at like language and sexual situations and programming.
Yeah, I think so. Like they're definitely yeah, they don't quite get that, but it's not like Pee-wee's Playhouse where your parents are just going, oh God, I hope they don't catch that reference. I hope they don't get that. I hope they don't get that. They hope they don't get every single innuendo, which thankfully did fly over all our heads because wow, that shouldn't have been shown to a kid.
Yeah, well, if you ever see the off topic, but if you ever see the stage versions of that show, it's definitely wasn't for kids.
No, definitely. And steering back to the subject, I didn't mean to go there, but no, it's like
It happens.
you have.
It's all good.
Yeah, the one thing I'll say is you watching it now with anime so popular versus watching it when we were kids, where anime was was like the second lowest rung of nerddom. Like even normal nerds didn't watch anime, and now anime is just everywhere. And the funny thing was, Ghibli was like the gateway to. It was the anime for people who didn't like anime. Was Ghibli movies?
I think for some Ghibli movies aren't as strong as the Miyazaki films, but with Miyazaki films and a lot of the other Ghibli films, it's because they have universal appeal, even though they're movies from Japan that Western audiences aren't always going to relate to. It's universal storytelling a lot of times. And I mean, Pixar, I don't think would not exist without Studio Ghibli's storytelling.
I don't think so either. No.
And I think that's why it's a lot of people's gateway. I think I had seen a few animes before I saw Mononoke, but I definitely was like, okay, this is a whole new level of anime that I've seen.
Well, I mean, we definitely know that Pixar's was influenced by Ghibli because the guy who started Pixar proposed to his wife at a showing of of Castle of Cagliostro. That movie changed his life. That was the first Ghibli movie he saw. So yeah.
Yeah. And I remember when they were releasing these movies in the mid 2000s, early to mid 2000s, when they were re-releasing all of Miyazaki's work on DVD. He was on their introduction, so many of them talking about Miyazaki's power and influence on him and Pixar.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely influenced Pixar's movies. You watch Pixar, you can clearly see how much they were influenced by Ghibli.
Absolutely. And I mean, Disney, I guess in some part, were able to get Spirited Away an Oscar.
Yeah, that definitely. And it wasn't it the first movie to win Best Animation? Wasn't that like a new category for them?
It was the second year, sadly the first year, and no disrespect to people that enjoy this movie a lot. I just think it's aged horribly. Is Shrek was the first film to win Best Animation.
Shrek was the first film to win that one. Yeah. My one experience watching Shrek was I was sick as a dog, and my parents decided to take us all to see Shrek, and I was hacking up a storm, and they literally told me just go to the lobby. So my one experience with Shrek was just miserable, and I don't think I've ever watched it since, and I need to go back and watch it to see what it's like. But Shrek 2 was really good.
I mean, it was very funny at the time. It was very topical humor, and it's also, we're being naughty, but not, like.
Yeah, I mean, it's very 90s. But the nice thing about Miyazaki movies is they work. They don't. Yeah. They stay classic regardless.
Yeah, because he's telling timeless stories, and I think that's the main problem with a lot of other animated movies. Not that he's the only one that does it, but he doesn't dumb down the material for children, even when they are children's films, even though like something like Kiki's or even Totoro to a certain degree. Children are more the target audience, quote unquote, but he doesn't dumb down the themes or the material or throw in jokes that kids will find funny just to entertain kids. He's like, I'm going to tell a good story, and they're going to be emotionally wrapped in what's going on with these characters' lives.
Yeah, it's like watching a very old Disney movie or an old Disney movie where you don't feel like this is for a little, like you don't feel as much like it's for a little kid. It's for everybody. It's a family movie rather. Well, okay. Mononoke's not a family movie, but the others are family movies, for everybody that everyone can enjoy. They're not dumbed down at all.
Yeah, and we have other proponent people who get upset when people call animation a genre and stuff, then that it's for kids. Brad Bird and Guillermo del Toro will yell at you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No. Animation is a medium to tell a story. And as someone who grew up in the low rung of nerddom of an anime fan, I can tell you you end up watching a lot of stuff that is not for children.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot. And I think I don't know about everybody, but I think a lot of time in the nerdum world for a while, I think a lot of people's hangups with anime was like all the fetishy stuff that but I mean that comes from almost any nerdum.
It's like I don't know what the Sci-Fi Channel was thinking. Clearly the Sci-Fi Channel thought Demon City Shinjuku was a great thing to show kids on Saturday morning, but the rest of us were like, yeah, maybe not. So, of course, as a teenager, my sister and I are watching Demon City Shinjuku on a Saturday morning when really I wish they had shown stuff like Princess Mononoke, because that probably would have been a little bit better for kids now that I'm older and thinking about it and thinking about all my little cousins. Like, I don't think I'd let my kids watch that. I'd totally let, it's like if I was having to babysit my little cousins, I wouldn't let them watch that. But showing them a Ghibli movie, I totally would, even if it's a very adult one.
Yeah. I think they're just masterfully told films, and I mean it's great that we got at least decent dubs if you have an issue with watching movies in subtitles, which you are, as Bong Joon-ho says, you are discrediting yourself a treasure of cinema by that. But if you are a fan of these movies, I do recommend you at least watching the subtitled version at least once on all of these Miyazaki films.
Yeah, the subtitle versions. It's like if I'd had access to the subtitles, I would have watched them this time because I've seen the dub a million times. Unfortunately, I didn't, so I had to watch. With the move I had, I couldn't find my DVD player, so I couldn't plug in my DVD of where I could have watched the sub. But so I had to watch the dub. But definitely, you should watch the sub for sure because there are differences.
Is there anything else you want to talk about between these two movies that they're similar or different?
God, I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think because I think we've nailed everything. This was a pretty short and simple one, I think. Just, at the end of the day, the main difference is, the main similarities, they're both deeply emotional movies. They will tug at you. And there are moments where they're deeply sad in both movies, but also deeply joyous in both movies. It'll swing you both ways. But I think that, the difference is definitely like watching a kid's movie versus watching a movie for adults.
It's kind of like, okay, I'm trying to think of so like Nausicaa would be like showing the original Star Wars to a kid, right? It's fine.
Yeah.
But
like watching Batman Forever versus watching The Dark Knight.
That's even more because Dark Knight's PG-13, but that is like a hard PG-13.
Yeah, it's like they had to cut stuff to keep it PG-13, while Batman Forever or Batman and Robin is clearly like they're PG-13, but they're light PG-13s.
I'm not gonna say too much because I don't want to give spoilers to certain things, but in movies that are out. But my wife Jessica had never seen the Schumacher Batman movies before, so we watched those not too long ago for the first time, and she's like, "Why are these movies oddly sexual?"
Yeah, there were some innuendos, if you will, in those.
But at the same time, I'm like, every time I watch Batman Returns, I'm like, I can't believe my parents let me watch this movie and they didn't think anything was wrong.
Yeah, Batman Returns was dark as can get, and Batman Forever was okay. Just release the Schumacher cut. We know it exists. Just give us the Schumacher cut. Kevin Smith owns the Schumacher cut. Let us see it.
Yeah, I would just like to see the added stuff. I don't think it's going to make the movie that much better, but I would like to see a little bit more of what the actual original script was before Schumacher and Goldsman came into the
I
film.
would definitely like to see that it was a different draft for sure. I know that Tim Burton wanted to do. Oh, now that makes me think. What would it be like if Miyazaki did he took on Lupin the Third? Imagine what would happen if Ghibli took on a Batman movie.
God, I just can't imagine how insane his Joker would be.
Oh my gosh, it's like, and they get Mark Hamill because he's done all the voices anyway.
That might be the only way you'd get him to come back and play the character.
Yeah, be like, hey, we're doing a Ghibli Batman movie. Do you want to see it? Like, I'd pay $1 million for that.
Absolutely. I'm trying to think what my thought. I had a thought on one of these. Was it Nausicaa? I think I had a thought about Nausicaa where I was just like, it's just really interesting to me, just kind of like it had Mononoke been his last movie, these would have been like good bookends to his career. You know? Kind of just how similar they are in the themes they're hitting. But I guess he had more stories to tell, and that's fine. You know, if he wants
Yeah,
to.
and then what's the next movie we got? We got Spirited Away.
Yeah,
You know, a couple of years later.
Which I think that came about when he was supposedly on retirement, and a friend or relative's daughter was visiting or something, and she was like out playing in the woods or something, and that kind of got the inspiration cooking for
Yeah.
Spirited Away.
Hey, guys like that don't people like that, they don't retire. They always have something else to tell, something else to do. And
Yeah.
I think I get the feeling that Miyazaki would be the sort of person who's miserable in retirement. But I will say that I actually got to see Spirited Away, of course, in theaters again, because I lived in Dallas, and Dallas you could see that stuff. But you know, but I still think Mononoke holds a bigger place in my heart, because it was such a huge movie for me as a kid. It was the first anime I saw in theaters. It was the first, you know, animated movie. I think anime movie or no, it wasn't. It wasn't. I'd seen Vampire Hunter D by that point, but you know, it was a huge deal, and it is a phenomenal movie. And we got to talk about the soundtracks.
Mm-hmm.
The soundtracks in both are both by the same guy. Both of them are full of emotion that sometimes almost feels it almost like, especially in Mononoke, I noticed this, that there's a contrast in the beauty of the soundtrack versus the abrasiveness of the imagery.
Mm-hmm.
But it all blends together perfectly.
Yeah. Yeah, they're both great soundtracks. And they're both haunting, especially that, like, the flashbacks of Nausicaa's.
Oh,
like,
God, if you're not crying in those, it's like you're gonna cry in those. Those are very hard flashbacks.
But yeah, is just a master storyteller. You know, his personality when he's being interviewed, and like how he feels about his work and things. He reminds me of, like, him and John Carpenter have similar vibes, except John Carpenter's perfectly happy chilling at his house, smoking weed, playing video games, and just playing on his guitar with his son.
Yeah, while Miyazaki will say very, very coarse things in an interview, he doesn't hold back. It's like, this guy's got get off my lawn energy, you know.
Yeah, he's a very grumpy old man. I hate life sometimes, and you know, he probably is bored being retired, because I think his wife passed a few years ago.
Oh yeah, that's yeah, and
And
his son took over at Ghibli, if I remember correctly. I think Tales of Earthsea was the son's first movie
I
to
believe
direct.
that's correct. Yes. He's only directed 3 films. And you know, Ghibli was gone for a while, and then it came back a couple of years ago.
Yeah, Ghibli's one of those institutions I think is very hard to. There's always going to be and Ghibli's animation style is always the same. Even that 3D animated something in Earwig
Earwig and the Angry Witch, which his son
Yeah.
did direct that. That was their first CGI movie.
Even then, it looks like, you know, it's a Ghibli movie. The style of the Ghibli movie is very, which is also interesting because he's got a very, I guess, soft animation style. His characters are very soft, I guess would be how I describe it, design wise, art wise. You know what I'm saying, right? Like, it doesn't look like a lot of other anime. Now it looks like pretty much all anime, but anime of the time period, it was a lot more hard lines, and he's more childlike, you know, more what you would consider childlike anime. And even then, his art style is very different from most other people's. but they've kept that style in every one of their movies. It's just a signature. You know a Ghibli movie when you see it.
So his new movie is out in Japan right now, and GK Kids, who now owns the distribution rights to Studio Ghibli, which is
G-Kids.
G Kids, sorry, which is why most of these movies are on Max instead of Disney Plus for streaming options, except for Grave of the Fireflies. You gotta go somewhere else to watch that.
Grave of the Fireflies is that is an entirely different can of worms. We could talk. I've never even seen it because I took one look at it and went, I don't want to be exposed to this.
Well, it is one of the most emotionally gut-wrenching films you will ever watch.
I was going like, do I want to watch The Bicycle Thief, the anime? Like,
yeah, I think it's more emotionally gut-wrenching than The Bicycle Thief. But
why would anybody watch that? Why would anybody watch that? The Bicycle Thief was designed. I'm pretty sure my film school teacher showed us The Bicycle Thief to weed out the weak from the strong.
Who really wants a degree in film?
Exactly. Like, how many people are going to last after watching this? It's like, would it be like that with Grave of the Fireflies?
Mm-hmm. Well, what's interesting is came out the same year as Totoro, right, in Japan. So it's Miyazaki, and it's Takada's first film as a director, who was another big player in Ghibli. Totoro, by the way, is my personal favorite Miyazaki film. So I love your shirt that you're wearing.
You can't really see it, but it's Lupin the Third and Totoro as Chewbacca and Han Solo.
Nice.
I've had this shirt for years and worked very hard to make sure it still works good despite having one or two small holes in it.
But when they would show this as a double feature, they purposely made Totoro the second film they watched because they're like, we can't make people leave.
Yeah.
With Grave of the Fireflies. So even though I gotta imagine if you watch Grave of the Fireflies and you're watching Totoro, you're like, oh God, not again, not again. And then of course.
And then Happy Cat. There's a Happy Cat bus. There's a cat bus.
Yeah. Well, because I mean the whole
total opposites.
The whole plot line with the mom, though, and that whole sequence, though, you know.
Yeah, I have a guilty confession to make. I've never actually seen Totoro.
Oh man,
I need to watch it. Like, it's on my watch list after watching this. I might watch it tonight. I don't think I'll have time, but it's like it's been up there with all these movies I've wanted to watch, and I don't know how I never saw it. I need to, and I want to very badly, but yeah.
I mean, if there's one you haven't seen, that's the one to watch. I mean, just because he's the face of Studio Ghibli.
This is the most adorable little creature, or not a little, but adorable creature in anime.
And getting back to the whole Pixar influence, Totoro's in Toy Story 3. He's part of Bonnie's Toys. He's part of Bonnie's Toys. She has a Totoro.
It shows up there. Yeah, it's like... And then, I have to say, though, you can see the influence. You want to talk about his childhood, in post-World War II Japan. You can really see it laid bare in Mononoke.
Oh, yeah, it is there, especially with the whole, the weapons destroying the environment and, poisoning the animals. And
I mean, you have literal kaiju Godzilla horror in there at one point.
Mm-hmm. Which, that was the whole creation of Godzilla, he was an effect, so.
Yeah, well, they're even taking it further in the newest movie that's coming out in December, -1, where it literally takes place, I think, like within a year or so of the end of World War II.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but
he's a very anti-war person, and he reflects that so much in his work, and probably the most in Mononoke, I think.
Yeah, when I was researching Nausicaa, I saw that the director of Evangelion apparently at one point, I have no idea if this is true, wanted to remake Nausicaa.
Oh.
And because you can look at it, and those giant robots that are in Nausicaa are clear cut. They have to be an influence on, I actually said that earlier, but they have to be an influence on the Evangelions. They walk the same way. They have weapons that are similar. They're very much, similar to another anime that is one of the one, just like Ghibli is a huge influence and made big, like you wouldn't have Pacific Rim without Evangelion. So like there's no doubt about that.
Well, I know Del Toro loves Miyazaki, so
yeah, definitely he loves it. I mean, he's pretty much gone straight to animation, and nobody has a problem with that. Him doing animation's amazing.
I will be totally fine if he finally makes it the Mountain of Madness and it's an animated movie. I'm okay
yes,
with
that would be that's how he needs to do it. That as a stop motion movie would be perfect. That's how you do it. You do it. You can still get Tom Cruise to do voices with Ron Perlman in there, but like he wanted to do, but do that as stop motion. Yeah, like that sounds great.
Yeah. I would love to see Tom Cruise work with a big auteur director again someday in his career, but I don't know if that's going to happen.
No, I don't think so. But God, imagine Tom Cruise in a Ghibli movie. That would be like, it's like, does the character have running scenes? Can we animate the running scenes? No, Tom, you can't animate the running scene. There's no more running scenes to put in there.
I mean, it would be the most charismatic animated character ever put on screen.
Yeah, it'd be like, this is the most cinematic run in history. Yeah.
But
Tom Cruise is a great actor. Yeah, but still.
Is there anything else on the?
I can't think of anything else. I think we've covered it and gone way off brand as usual when I'm on your show.
It's with everybody. I mean, it's just the nature of these conversations. You think of something else, and you're just like, "Hey, blah 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 blah," and then anyways. But
yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on. I mean, anytime to talk great movies like these, especially these ones. And of course, like I said, I feel Nausicaa is kind of underrated in the Miyazaki resume.
It's definitely one everyone should watch. It's a truly beautiful movie. It's so much fun. The world is engrossing. In some ways, I think the world is more engrossing than Mononoke is.
There's a lot more world building, and then if definitely sci-fi is your jam, you're gonna love it.
Like I hate post-apocalyptic movies, but I love Nausicaa. Like post-apocalyptic movies tend to be really depressing. I have no interest in watching them, but Nausicaa is beautiful. I would watch that anytime.
That's a great endorsement because I know a lot of people kind of feel similar. That's just not their jam. They don't want to watch.
It's not as depressing. It takes place 1,000 years later, where it's still bleak in a lot of ways, but it's also, you see people living their life the best they can, but they're actually kind of happy and at peace in the world they're in. And it's interesting.
My brain fart came back to me of my thought on Nausicaa. So what is his name? The Patrick Stewart character and a lot of the
Oh God, Lord Yuma.
Lord Yuma. I'm like, do a lot of the men just have these big mustaches so they don't have to do as many facial expressions for them?
I don't know, but that dude is a master swordsman. That's some of the best fighting in anime.
That's true. It does go, but it's some of the best action I've seen in fights in an anime. But I think for me, Mononoke just hits harder because one, it was the first Miyazaki film I ever watched. Two, it's something more that I'm interested in because of the whole samurai ancient Japan stuff. And yeah, but Nausicaa's great. They're both great movies. And if you've only seen one of these or you haven't seen either one of these, because I know a lot of people's entryway is Spirited Away.
Yeah, that I think that's become the standard bearer of the movies of his. Is it's the one everyone watches probably first because it's the one everyone talks about.
Yeah, I think Howls has a big play with a certain
Oh, House has a
generation
huge
away
following.
as
Yeah,
well, especially with the younger, the Gen Zs. I think
that was probably
Howls is a
their
bit.
first one. Like, because 99, 2003, most of the earliest, the oldest Gen Zs were born in like 99. So maybe when they were 4 years old, their older sibling showed them Spirited Away, But yeah, I think Howl's Moving Castle was the first one that they probably saw, while everyone in our generation probably saw Kiki's Delivery Service first or later saw Mononoke. For us, it was Mononoke, but I know a lot of people, Kiki's Delivery Service was the first one they saw.
Well, actually, I don't know. I saw Kiki and Mononoke fairly close together because I know the Kiki dub came out in '98, and I think I watched it on the Disney Channel after Roger Ebert had um, Harry Knowles on his show to talk about cult movies, and that's kind of where I heard about that movie was from that.
Yeah, like I know that I know a lot of people because I was a huge anime nerd, and I saw people who were not anime nerds at all talking about Kiki's Delivery Service. And so I think that one made a big impact in the home video market. Um,
Well, also, before we go, I will just say Kiki's Delivery Service. If you think it's just one of the more silly Miyazaki movies, let's see. If you are recently college age, or you have recently graduated from college, or you're just living on your own for the first time as an adult, Kiki's Delivery Service is going to hit you hard. You are going to relate to that movie so hard watching it. You're going to be like, yep, I feel you, girl. I'm serious. That's what the movie feels like, because your first steps into adulthood, and it's scary sometimes.
it's Uber with a broom, with a flying
Yeah,
broom. Yeah,
but
yeah.
JP, thank you so much for coming on and talking with me about Miyazaki, and you're welcome anytime you want to come on and talk
Oh,
anything.
definitely, definitely. I would love to see it. We should do a Takashi Miike night one night. I know y'all recently did Audition.
Oh,
Uh,
we actually never recorded it, but I did watch it again.
yeah, if you ever want to talk about Audition, I will talk about Audition. I will talk about me or Takashi Miike, my favorite director, all day long. So
Yeah,
if you ever want to talk about that auteur,
we will have to pick selected films. I don't think I will ever do that man's entire filmography because I don't think I can watch all those movies.
I literally will say this: pick any one of his movies, any five, even one that is an abysmal movie, because he'll take on movies that are not that great, but it's always a good Miyake movie. You will learn more about filmmaking watching five of his movies than you will reading a textbook.
Well, I definitely have seen at least five, but
Yeah, I've got, let's see, I've got like 7 or 8 of them in my up there on my behind me. Some of which I've never even had a chance to watch. So whenever I can find my DVD player, wherever the heck it is, I'm gonna watch them. But yeah,
but but I've enjoyed this conversation and I enjoy both these movies thoroughly. So
yeah.
I want you to have a good night and a great week. And I hope you get to see one of these three big movies soon that's coming out if you get a chance.
Definitely, I'm hoping so. Yeah, like I've been so busy. I'm like, am I gonna have time to make it to the theater? It's been crazy, but I'm come hell or high water. I'm gonna see Oppenheimer in IMAX.
And The Boy and the Heron is said to be released sometime this year for North American audiences. We don't have a release date yet.
What I love about this is there's no trailer. There's no press release material on it. It's like, this is going to come out. You're going to come watch it, and we're not going to tell you anything about it. It's like Hitchcock could not have done a better job at getting you interested in the movie. Because most people would be like, well, man, this movie must stink if they're not going to talk about it. No, 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 this is Miyazaki we're talking about. If he's doing that, he's doing this for a reason. He doesn't want anyone to be spoiled under any circumstance.
The reviews from Letterboxd in Japan are that they love it mostly, and they were glad they didn't know anything about it going in.
Yeah, I want to see it. The one little promo piece of art with the heron where you just see part of the heron's head, that is the most you're going to be allowed to see before you walk in to see it. So
yeah. I wonder if we're going to get it. It's just going to get like a release date sometime in the fall. And it's like, it's coming out this weekend at these theaters. Go see it.
Yeah, probably is what's going to happen. It's like they're not going to, and then some jackass on YouTube is going to pull out their phone and show it in YouTube shorts, and then you're going to get angry.
Yeah. Well, thank you again. Enjoyed this conversation. Same here. If you guys are watching, there is a video up on YouTube of our first episode of the David Lynch series. We talked the first 2 episodes of Twin Peaks. We'll be back to talk 3 more episodes in 2 weeks from tonight. So stay tuned if you're watching along or you're giving the series a try, because we're going through the series first before we do the films. But we're going to do the Twin Peaks movie in between the 2 series. So that's going to be it. And I'm going to wish everyone else a great night. And if you have a Max subscription, go watch those 2 films right now.
Yeah, definitely.